Hey guys, welcome back to what I think is part 4 of the N54 6AT to DCT swap. So it's actually a bit of a late start today. It is nearly 12 o'clock and I haven't done anything yet. Now, I did come in last night and I have removed the center console, which has given us access to the shifter, and then this here is all the wiring that we're going to need to tap into for the swap. But before we get involved in the wiring, which is probably going to be the last video, we need to get the gearbox in. So I've got the DCT here. Hopefully you saw the video the other day where I did basically an out-of-car service. So replaced the common seals that wear, that sort of stuff. All the oil is out of it at the moment, so we're going to get that filled back up, but we need to get it mounted in the car first. So what I'm going to do is get the battery disconnected, get this up in the air, and then get the original 6AT out of the beast. How hard can it be? All right, let's crack on. All right, so we've got it up in the air. One of the first things we're going to do this time is actually drain the transmission fluid out now and try and stop making too much of a mess. That'll be one of the first things I do. Then, I'd forgotten, but I'm going to have to take the exhaust off, which is no drama because we're going to be doing the diff and possibly the drive shaft, although I don't know for sure. Might be able to reuse this drive shaft, but we've got to disconnect it anyway. So I'll take the exhaust off, get these heat shields off. I'm going to need new gaskets for my downpipes, annoyingly. This cross brace will have to come off, but that should give us access to everything hanging off the back. To get the actual transmission off, I'm going to try and angle it back, basically drop this section down, and that'll hopefully give me access to get all of the bell housing bolts, and I think we should be good. So, all right, that's the plan. I'll update you when I have a problem with it. Well, time for an update. Now, I haven't filmed much of this because we've done it all before already on the channel, but the diff is out, the exhaust is off. Now, I have had the tail shaft right down, but it's just in there loose at the moment. We have drained the transmission. We have undone the torque converter bolts, so all 6 torque converter bolts are off. The linkage is off of the transmission. I've got to get to the oil cooler lines just there. Couldn't quite get a socket in there, but hopefully we'll be able to get it once the transmission is down a little bit. I have undone the cooler lines from the sump right there. Did have to take the thermofan out just so that we could lock the crank to get the torque converter, or spin the crank to get the torque converter bolts out. She's slowly coming along. Obviously the heat shield and everything had to be taken down, but we're getting there. Right now, it's actually at the point where I need to work out a way to get to the transmission bell housing bolts. I think I can see everything apart from the top one, so with some bendy extensions we might be all right. I'm gonna have a look at the top, but yeah, she's going well. I am 2 hours in, although I have spent probably about 40 minutes messaging people, which seems to happen whenever I'm in a rush to do things. Anyway, I'll give you an update once I've worked out how to get to those transmission bolts. And my God, it's hot. I've been a bit slack on the filming, but this is how we're managing to undo all the bell housing bolts. And I've basically got the engine tilted up at the front, which I'll show you when the car is back down. But actually all the top bolts are undone. I think it's just 2 left. Ooh. All right, so that is all of the bell housing bolts undone. And I guess wiring's caught up. Far out. What a nightmare of a job. All right, I'll let you know. Well, it took me about an hour, but the bell housing bolts are done. And I think just want to make sure all the wiring is unclipped. It is. Cool, we'll keep going. The 6AT is out. Oh, she put in the work, this thing. Done pretty well. All right, that took a friggin' lot longer than I wanted it to. But now we can work on getting the shifter swapped over and just pop that new one in. Well, it's the next day, and let me explain. So yesterday didn't really go to plan. I'm going to blame myself. I just felt like crap, and things were taking longer than they should, and I was probably messaging too many people. Anyway, it wasn't going very well, so I ended up going, right, I just need to stop worrying about filming stuff and just crack on and get this gearbox in. So the plan with yesterday, well, this video that you're seeing now, was to have the DCT up in its place. Now, once I got the transmission out, the 6AT, it should have been pretty smooth sailing to bolt the flex plate on and we're good to go. However, I'd made a mistake. I got caught out. So on the DCT swap thread on Spool Street, it gave you a list of all the parts that you need. And one of the part numbers were the DCT flywheel bolts. And I remember when I read that, I thought, I wonder if that is actually different to the 6AT flywheel bolts. If it is, I'll just use the bolts from the parts car. However, the parts car is a 6-bolt flywheel, or a 6-bolt crank, and I have an 8-bolt crank. So when I've basically gone to bolt the M factory flywheel up, which we have here, I've noticed how much thicker the DCT flywheels are than the flex plates on the 6AT cars, and basically the automatic bolts don't stick out much. So I was like, oh cool, I'll just get the bolts off that motor, and then it clicked. The bolts are, well, there's only 6 bolts. I've only got 6 DCT bolts, and I've got 8 automatic bolts. That is actually the size difference in the bolts. So with the automatic bolts, you only get like 1 or maybe 2 threads that actually bite in the crank, so that is no good. So long story short, I was trying to be cheap, which is normal, and I've been caught out because I don't have the right flywheel bolts. And obviously if I can't put the flywheel on, I couldn't put the transmission in. So last night I did end up getting the DCT diff mounted up in this car. So that is the DCT diff out of the donor car, and also the DCT drive shaft. I've got a little bit of footage I'll overlay here, but the automatic drive shaft is a different length between this point here and the guibo, whatever it's called, just there. So you can't actually, I couldn't use my automatic drive shaft with this diff, and the diff is a different shape as well, which I didn't realize. I thought there was just small housing and large housing diffs in the E90s and E92s, but this one is just a completely different shape. It's a small housing diff, it's an open diff, but it is, yeah, just different shapes. So I couldn't use my diff brace either. So there was a few little annoyances last night. Anyway, following on in this video, I'm gonna try and get the wiring done. Now, I could be pushing my luck here, but what I wanna do is, and the shifter is in as well. But what I want to do is wire up the DCT shifter and see if we can power it up. And I was thinking of being even super dodgy and maybe even putting that box close enough so I can plug the box in. We'll earth it and just see if we can get the car to communicate with it and see how we go. I mean, obviously we won't be able to start the car, but we'll try and get the wiring done in this video now. So I'll lower the car down and see if I can work out a bit of a plan. All right, see you guys shortly. All right, guys, so I know it's been quite a while, but I have the DCT shifter wired in, I think. Yeah, basically I've managed to follow AJL's wiring diagram pretty well, apart from changing a couple of pins, and I've got the PT CAN bus and the power wire for the DCT cluster from the EKP module just back there. Now I've just T-tapped in just to try all this. I've ran NCS Expert and updated the combi, the IK, I'll have to list all the modules, basically followed the DCT swap guide, and then I went and updated the DME, and that seemed to wipe out the flash on the DME and reset the DME back to the original donor car's VIN number. So I'm now flashing MHD onto the DME again, and I think we're good. I may leave this video here, maybe. We'll see how long it is, but we'll find out tomorrow when I get the 7th and 8th flywheel bolts if this has worked. I'm feeling confident, but until the DCT's in, we've started up and it selects the gear, I really don't know. Anyway, if this is the end, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.